What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a minute since I posted a video here on the channel, but with the release of the new news here on Arena, I figured I'd dive in, kind of talk about this, kind of relaunching kind of my little break away from the game as a whole. As the holidays have kind of happened, it's kind of gotten a little busy on my end, and it's been hard for me to get time to really dive into Arena. But with the introduction of Alchemy, the new, I would guess, game type coming to Arena exclusively, I feel like it's a good point to kind of talk about my thoughts about it, kind of give you an idea of what the set is about. If you're kind of curious, like, what does this change for me as a Magic player as a whole, and depending on where you fall on this, it could be a little, it could be a whole lot. So with that being said, if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. With that being said, let's just dive into Alchemy and let's talk about it. So Alchemy is a new format coming to Arena exclusively, as it's going to be a format that's going to be ever evolving, ever changing. It's going to be adding some new digital only cards, kind of like what we got in Historic in a way. So as a new set releases, we'll get some we'll get the cards that will be released in the physical set when the set releases itself, and then we'll get new digitally only cards that roughly will release about a month afterwards. They'll be exclusive to Arena, and they'll probably have abilities that kind of make it harder for you to make real versions of them, as you can do things where you you seek a particular card and it kind of generates that card automatically, or generates a particular token. So we'll kind of go over the cards as we kind of get through, but we're gonna get some new digitally only cards with this whole new set. The other thing too with it, it's an ever evolving play mode. So as the meta evolves, as we can kind of see, sometimes metas get stale and it becomes unfun. There's some cards that are extremely broken, or some cards that are just way too good and just make certain decks overperform compared to others. So what's going to be happening, Magic will be analyzing this format, and they'll take cards and they'll make changes to the cards to kind of hopefully balance them. You'll even see some cards come from the banned list and get unbanned with the new changes to the cards to not make them as broken, which is definitely a new boost to players' decks and what people will play. I know the one downfall you can kind of see already when it comes to adding these changes to decks is, well, I crafted this card, now this card's weaker. Unfortunately, it's kind of like one of the things that can be exclusive only to this format. So if you are, not interested in the changes, you can just continue to play standard and get the card for what it is as it's printed, rather than what they'll be changing it to. So that's kind of like the one benefit. It's not going to be replacing standard completely. It's just going to be a new adjacent format alongside standard that's going to be changing in a digital only kind of base. So that's actually pretty cool. It actually is releasing about a week from the recording of this video on December 9th. If you see it afterwards, it has already released, but it is a digital only format that's going to be revolved around standard and ever evolving, changing standard to kind of give, a refresh to the format every so often if it feels like it's becoming stale or broken. So the one thing that's pretty cool, that's going to be pretty interesting to players who are, interested in possibly trying Alchemy, is that when it launches, you'll automatically, at no cost to you, you'll get 3 Alchemy Boosters, which are kind of just like regular standard boosters. You get 6 rare Alchemy individual card rewards, which I assume are random. So depending on what you have, it'll be random. You'll get 1 Alchemy Mythic Rare ICR. So you'll get 1 also Mythic. So if you'll get 6 regular rares and 1 Mythic. Definitely pretty awesome to get a little bit of a boost, especially if you want to try out the format to kind of see where it goes. So we'll kind of go over a few things that actually probably be questions that you may have when it comes to Alchemy itself. What does it mean for certain categories? I will probably pop up a few of the changes that they've announced. I don't know if they're just going to do a whole bunch of changes, or if they're only going to start with these changes and kind of go from there. So they already previewed some of the new changes to particular cards that are currently in the standard meta, with some new additions to them overall as a whole. The other thing too is to get Alchemy Boosters, players can either purchase them for 1,000 gold or 15 of them for 3,000 gems. Same as standard boosters, so nothing's really changing there. A special Alchemy bundle containing 20 Alchemy Boosters will be available 3,000 gems or 15,000 gold, but it's only one limit per player, so once you redeem it, it's gone forever. So depending on where you are with collecting particular cards in your collection, you may or may not want to invest into this immediately, or maybe wait until a future Alchemy set that gets released that maybe you don't have too many cards from that particular collection. The other thing too is it's kind of interesting on how you acquire or collect Alchemy cards other than from packs. Alchemy Boosters will now contain new to digital only Magic cards, rebalance cards, and cards from adjacent standard sets in Innistrad Crimson Vow. So the thing is, the cards they're changing are strictly only mythics and rares for the most part. The one thing that's kind of weird is that they say it It doesn't have any commons. I guess it has some uncommons as well. So you'll have uncommons that will also change as well. The one thing that's actually pretty cool is that when you do get a new alchemy card, you'll also get the adjacent standard version of that card. So if you were to get one of the brand new cards, let's just say Alrund's Epiphany is actually one of the cards that they did make a change to, you'll get the new Alrund's Epiphany, and you'll also get the standard legal version of Alrund's Epiphany as well. So that's definitely definitely a good thing there. So you're not really wasting gems unless you've kind of already collected them. So the other thing is true when opening standard boosters. So if you are a person who plays strictly standard, you can also, when you open a particular card that got rebalanced in an alchemy booster, you'll also get the alchemy version of that card as well. So I'm going to throw it out there. I mean, hopefully this is how it works. But if you have all the cards that are getting nerfed or changed, you'll have their alchemy version already on day one. So you don't have to go out and craft the alchemy version on top of the version you already own. So that's definitely pretty cool. So pretty much if you have all the cards that are getting changes, you'll only have to really work towards getting the alchemy only cards that will be released with the set. So the other thing too here that's actually a little confusing that actually is a little bit of clarification. So in the common slot, since they're not making any changes to commons, you'll get Crimson Vow or the latest set in Magic Standard as the common set. And as you kind of, collect the set as a whole, you'll then start getting the more recent uncommons you'll start getting the uncommons and rares and mythics for that particular set until you get to the point when you get a particular rare or mythic, or you have all the rares and mythics, you'll just get the gems from the more recent set. So it does have that protection there. You'll also have duplicate protection as well. So if you own the version of the card, like I said, you kind of already have the alchemy version. So you won't get more Alrund's Epiphanies or cards that have gotten nerfed. If you already collect them in your collection, you'll just kind of have them go directly into, whatever you don't have. So that's definitely pretty cool. Though the other thing too is it's kind of one of those things until we really see it develop, it's kind of hard to see how it really will play out. It is a big move for Wizards to do something like this, just because it is saying that digital is kind of like the future, because they're putting more effort into a digital only version of Magic. Though I will say it is not taking anything away from physical Magic, as I do think with people getting back out there playing physical Magic is definitely a different experience, and I do think it's definitely an integral part of the game, as there are still going to be crafting new sets. Standard will still continuously be getting new sets. I'm going to also throw it out there, they're probably going to still add stuff more to Modern and all of those formats as well. So it's definitely like they're not just going to drop everything else and just strictly focus on this, but it is kind of making a digital MTG Arena a separate thing outside of just being just a different area to play basic Standard and some other limited formats as well. So kind of getting a little bit of a preview of some of the new rebalance cards that are coming with this new alchemy set. As you kind of see here are a few ideas of some of these cards that you are looking at. Some of them are pretty awesome, and some of them could be maybe not make the card as good. Only time will tell really what it is. But it's pretty interesting. So the first one here, as you see here, is Alrund's Epiphany. It's a 7 mana. Take an extra turn after this one. If this spell was foretold, you create the 2 bird token creatures with flying, exile Alrund's Epiphany. So essentially what the change is here, it only gets the birds if you foretell it. So it does kind of rebalance it. It's not as strong, so you're not getting birds regardless of which mana you play. So you have to foretell your Alrunds to then get the birds in addition. So little less broken, not drastically different, but it is slightly different. And the foretell cost that you actually have to pay to cast it is 7, and it's not 6 anymore. So you're not really getting a discount if you put it in the foretell, though you are protecting it if you foretell it for 2 in your earlier turns, and then once you get to 7 mana, you can then cast it. Next card up is Zeke's Chariot. It's a card I guess they thought needed a little bit of a nerf. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 2/2 cat creature token, so you only get 1 creature token instead of 2. And then they also change the crew cost down to 2. So this is actually kind of interesting. So I guess their idea behind it, I don't know if they went into the rebalance versions of it. And my guess is that the problem is, even if you got rid of the Zeke's Chariot, you still have the cat tokens to deal with. But I guess their balance is, instead of making a crew 4 and only giving you 1 cat token, they made it a crew 2. You only get 1 cat token, so you can either deal with the cat or you can deal with the Zeke's Chariot, and then they only have a 2/2 cat on defense or left over afterwards. So as long as they don't get to attack with it, they're only gonna have 1 cat on the battlefield. Another card that's pretty sweet is Omnath is coming back. I believe Omnath is a 4 mana card originally. It's now 5 mana. It's a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you scry a card. I think it used to be drew a card. I can't remember. I'd have to like dive into Arena. I don't have it currently open on my client, so I can't really pop it open and take a quick look at it. But let me know in the comments below if I'm remembering that correctly. But I do think it was draw a card. But then whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn, if it's the second time, 4 mana. If it's the third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and planeswalker you don't control. So it's definitely an interesting card. I don't know if it's as good just because we don't have like things like Fable Passage. There is still mana ramp in the format, but I don't think it will drastically, throw a bunch of lands out on the battlefield all at once. It's gonna be interesting to see how it balances like something like Red and 6. Does Red and 6 make this card very good because you can have a handful of lands, you play Omnath, you give the 0 ability, put all the lands on the battlefield tapped, and therefore trigger the ability simultaneously. So that's definitely going to be something to see how it works out, but it is kind of an expensive, synergy to kind of work out, but definitely a card that's definitely interesting on how overall it will perform. Then we kind of have some cards that I personally wasn't seeing them, being an issue, but it actually feels like these are cards that got buffed. So the first one up is Cosmo Elixir. It's a 4 mana artifact. If you don't know what it does, at the beginning of your end step, you draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. So I think they changed it. I think it used to be it used to say 20 on the card, but so if it's now a brawl game, I guess, though there isn't gonna be Alchemy Brawl, but if it's a game where you have more than 20 life total, it's gonna be greater. So if it's 25, like in a brawl game, you're gonna have to have 25 or more. But so it's gonna be 20. It just says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than the starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life in Scry. I think it just used to be gain 2 life and that was it. So Scry is definitely good. It makes it that slightly a little bit better because then you can take the top card of your library if it's not something that's useful, throw it on the bottom, and you're still gaining life out of it. So definitely not a bad adjustment. Next card up is going to be Wizard class. This is a card that's uncommon. It's okay. It's not great. Its general ability when you play it is that you have no maximum hand size. You have to discard at the end of your turn. For 3 mana, you can level it up to level 2. You get to draw 2 cards, and then for 3 mana again, which is actually a buff because it used to cost 5 mana. Whenever you draw a card, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. So therefore, a buff on the card is you get this for cheaper. So it definitely makes it a little bit more playable. Who knows if it's going to be something that makes it you'll see more of it, but definitely a good addition to make an uncommon a little bit better, but not too broken. Then the last card up is Demolitch. I think the change here really is it just went from being a 4/3 for 4 mana that gets cheaper the more instants of sorceries that you cast before you cast it, and then it's now a 4/4. So that's really the big change there. I don't think there's anything much different with that. I do think they kind of talk about it for the most part in the article, but this is kind of like a gist of in the article of the state of the game where they kind of get a little bit into more detail. As you can kind of see here, here's an example of you opening a pack and getting a Goldspan Dragon, but then also getting, an additional Goldspan Dragon, the one that's either for Alchemy or the one that's for the set that you're opening. Down here, they're going to talk about the Alchemy and Innistrad. Like this one, for example, you have to exile 2 cards from your graveyard. You draft a card from Inska's Broodmother's Spellbook, and there's a whole list on one of these pages I have open with the spell book of cards that you can actually select. I don't know exactly what all the cards do or if the cards exist already that you can look up, but that's definitely something that's really digital only. The other thing too is you got a new land here, which is definitely pretty interesting. It enters tap, but if enters the battlefield, choose a color. If enters the battlefield, scribe 1 if you weren't the starting player. You may untap Forsaken. You may untap the Forsaken Crossroads instead. So definitely cool there. You get a land that can create 1 mana of the chosen color. If you're, and it comes into play untapped if you're not the starting player. So cool there. Taurus Disciple is a 3 mana 3/3 haster. Whenever it attacks, conjure 4 cards named Lightning Bolt into your library, then shuffle. So this is definitely cool. It's a card that only if there was more burn. So gonna be interesting to see if burn becomes a thing. And these cards are all gonna be like this Alchemy standard legal, not standard legal, so you won't see these cards in standard play. So if you don't want to play with any of these cards or changes, you can still continue to play standard in Arena. They're not going to get rid of the format. It's just going to be an additional format on top of it. I think the other thing I didn't know out of this, which is definitely interesting, is that it's kind of like one of those things that we'll see kind of where Magic evolves. Does it become more aggressive? Does it kind of go the route of being more diverse, which I do think is definitely good for something like standard, though it is going to be kind of going to be one of those things over time. We'll see how it develops. The other thing I also didn't talk about is that it's actually still going to follow exactly like standard rotation. So when these cards that are in standard or released with standard sets get introduced, they'll rotate out as well. So come September, all these cards will still be legal, and then all the old sets, if they had these alchemy cards to go alongside of them, would then rotate out with them. So we won't really see these cards rotate out until not next year, but until 2024. So, you know, we'll have these digital only cards as well as the sets that are standard legal till then, and then we'll get our first rotation of the set as a whole. So definitely pretty interesting to kind of see how it develops, how, you know, people find it overall. I do think it's definitely a decent break away from typical standard if you're kind of sick of some of the certain decks. Though I don't know if they're talking about more changes, as those are really the only changes they've talked about. And then these are some preview cards of kind of what I already talked about, and then it kind of shows you like the spell book of stuff, so you can kind of take a look at what you can get with some of these cards if that's what you're looking for. But you know, it's just a gist of kind of what they've released so far. I don't know if they're going to do more changes or if they're going to be adding other things to the set, but they're going to be previewing, I think, over the course of this week to next week, some new cards are getting introduced with the Alchemy set. And then as well, I don't know if, like I said, if we're going to get more changes, but this is definitely pretty cool. And we'll kind of see how this develops. We don't really know how often they're going to develop, but I think they said they'll intervene when they do think they want to make changes to the format. I'm hoping it's not every time a set comes out, but you know, even so, that's about 3.5 months, depending on, you know, when the last set was released. So I still think that's a decent time scale. And it's kind of one of those things we'll kind of see, they'll release a set, see how it works, and then see what cards maybe are a bit too much. But at the same time too, with people maybe playing less regular standard in Arena, it may be not as many changes, but you know, time will tell. But if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.